Alright guys, I am back again with another deck profile for Cardfight Vanguard Deer Days 2 on Nintendo Switch. So this time I got version 1 of my vintage format Kagero Overlord deck. So version 1 does only include cards from the base game. It does not include any of the vintage DLC packs that they've released so far. Again, not that there's that many Kagero cards in those DLC packs anyway, but this is just base game stuff. So this deck is based around Dragonic Overlord, both of his forms, both the OG Overlord as well as his cross-ride form, Dragonic Overlord the End. And this deck is pretty straightforward. It pretty much just focuses on a beatdown strategy with the potential to possibly restand your Vanguard to gain extra attacks. So a pretty simple, straightforward deck, but pretty fun to play. So, as always, we'll be going through the deck, and then we'll show it off in one card fight for you to see it in action. So, starting first with our grade zeros, of course, we have our starting Vanguard, which is Lizard Soldier Conroe. So, he has his auto ability that says when another Kagero rides this unit, you may call this card to a rearguard circle. So, again, this is the Forerunner ability. When you ride on top of him, you can just call him to rearguard. And then he has his activate ability when he's on rearguard circle. That has a cost of Counterblast 1 and retiring this unit. That lets you search your deck for up to one grade 1 or less Kagero, reveal it to your opponent, put it into your hand, and shuffle your deck. So this is a extremely nice ability, letting you search out any grade 1 or lower from your deck, which you're always going to target a grade 1 with this. Your primary targets for this skill are usually either a Perfect Guard or Bar, who's the grade 1 vanilla 8K unit. So depending on whether you need defense or offense based on what's in your hand at the moment, this card can grab either of those. It can grab any grade 1 in the deck that you want, but those are your primary targets usually. So extremely nice skill. It is technically a ±0 since you're retiring this card and then searching out one to go to your hand, but the Forerunner ability is a Soul Blast 1 for a +1, essentially. So it still balances out pretty good in terms of card advantage as well. So being able to search your deck for any grade 1 you want is definitely very handy. So the only other grade zeros we have in the deck is our trigger lineup. So we are running 8 crit, 4 draw, and 4 heal. So pretty basic trigger lineup. You want as many crits as you can since you potentially have a restanding Vanguard in this deck. So starting first for the crit triggers, we do have 4 copies of Embodiment of Spear, Tar. So just the vanilla crit. Additionally, we also have 4 copies of Blu-ray Draco Kid. Again, just a vanilla crit. Next for the draws, we have 4 copies of Dragon Dancer Monica. So a vanilla draw as well. You can run the effect draw if you want to, but it doesn't really make a huge difference. And then lastly for the heals, we have 4 copies of Dragon Monk Genjo. So once again, a vanilla heal. Entirely vanilla trigger lineup in this deck. So that's all the grade zeros. Moving on to the grade 1s. First off, we have 4 copies of Embodiment of Armor Bar. So this is, as mentioned before, the vanilla 8K grade 1. So he doesn't have any skills, but you know, the 8K base does make it a lot easier for you to hit your magic numbers. And of course he is searchable off of Conroe as well, so very helpful card in the deck. Next up, we have 3 copies of Dragon Monk Gojo. So he has activate ability when he's on Vanguard or rearguard circle, with a cost of resting this unit and choosing a card from your hand and discarding it, and it just lets you draw a card. So this is your Lien clone. It's just a hand filter. I don't really use this skill a ton, honestly. If you go first and you ride this, if you want to get that early hand filter, you can just rest this on your Vanguard circle, which you won't be attacking that turn anyway, so you won't be losing out on anything. In any other situation besides that, you will have to give up this unit's boost in order to get that hand filter, since you do have to rest him for this cost. So it doesn't get used a ton. I am mostly just running this for the 7K base, honestly. With the card pool we have for vintage formats in this game, honestly, Kagero is kind of lacking in the grade 1 department, so I didn't really have a lot of better options other than this to run. So, bit of a niche card, but I am just running it because I don't really have anything better to run. So, next up, we have 2 copies of Flame of Hope Airmo. So he has auto ability when he's on rear guard circle, with a cost of choosing a card from your hand and discarding it. And the ability says when an attack hits during the battle that this unit boosted, you may pay the cost, and if you do, draw a card. So yet again, this is another hand filter ability. This one has to boost a hit in order to get it. So a different timing. Again, this isn't the most useful ability in the world. If your hand is clogged with grade 3s or something and you need to get rid of one of those to try to draw something else, can potentially be a little useful. It does have to boost a hit, so it does rely on your opponent actually letting an attack through. But it can add a little bit of pressure to one of your attacks if you want. But again, I am just running this because there aren't a lot of better options. If you want, you could replace this card and any number of Gojos with maybe Heat Nail Salamander or maybe even Kimnara if you wanted a control option. But I am just sticking with these for now. So the only other grade 1 we have is our Sentinel, so we have 4 copies of Wyvern Guard Baree. So of course it is a Sentinel unit, and then it has the auto ability with the cost of choosing a Kagero from your hand and discarding it. And the ability when this unit is placed on Guardian Circle, you may pay the cost. If you do, choose one of your Kagero that is being attacked, and that unit cannot be hit until end of that battle. So just your standard perfect guard for vintage format. No option to make it free. Again, if you're used to standard formats, those perfect guards can potentially be free. At least this one cannot. So do keep that in mind. So that's all the grade 1s. Moving on to the grade 2s. First off, we have 4 copies of Burning Horn Dragon. So he has his auto ability when he's on rear guard circle. That says when this unit attacks, if you have a Vanguard with Overlord in its card name, this unit gets power plus 3,000 until the end of that battle. So very simple ability, but very useful. Turns him into a 12k beat stick, which all of the grade 3s in this deck have Overlord in their name. So as soon as you hit grade 3, this will be guaranteed to be online. So at 12k, he can hit anything but cross rides unboosted. And with Bar behind him, he can make a roll of 20, which is magic numbers for 10k Vanguards. And even with just a 6k like Airmo behind him, he can still at least hit 18, which is a magic number for cross rides as well. So just a very helpful offensive card in this deck, making it a lot easier to hit those magic numbers. So next up, we got 2 copies of Dragon Knight Nehalem. So this is just your vanilla 10k grade 2, again just a beat stick unit. It helps hit those magic numbers easier if you end up riding into this. Of course, that 10k defense is helpful as well. So nothing special, but just a nice offensive unit. Then next we have 2 copies of Prowling Dragon Striken. So he has a continuous ability when he's on Vanguard Circle, which is a keyword ability called Restraint, which all this ability does is prevent this unit from attacking. So obviously this is a negative ability, and unlike most of the cards with Restraint, he doesn't have another ability that lets you remove it. So if you ride into this card on turn 2, you will have to give up your Vanguard attack for that turn, which means it will be a -1 to you since you're not getting that drive check either. So that sounds negative, but he has 2 auto abilities to help make up for this. So his first auto ability when he's on Vanguard Circle says when this unit is attacked, if there are no boosting units, this unit gets power plus 5,000 until end of that battle. So as you can see, he does also have a 10k base, and if he's attacked by a unit that's not boosted, he gets another 5 on top of that, bringing him to 15. So this defensive skill can help make up for the fact that you minused yourself on the prior turn by riding this, since it does make it a lot harder for your opponents to actually hit your Vanguard. So that means you can save some cards in your hand from not having to guard as much as you normally would in exchange for losing out on that card the previous turn. So it can kind of balance itself out. Which, one thing I should point out here, if you're playing against the CPU, the AI in this game doesn't recognize this skill, I don't think. Since they will attack into this card with like a 10 to 14k unit, even though it can't hit, you know, that attacking unboosted. So this skill just triggers and the attack just fizzles because it doesn't have enough power to hit, when they could have used that attack to like pick off a rear guard or something. So the AI does not do well with this ability. If you're playing online or something against an actual human being, obviously they'll be able to play around this a little bit more, but it can force your opponents to have to commit to a board early and drop some boosters in order to hit over this card's ability, which will eat up their hand and potentially make it harder for them to block your attacks next turn, which sort of ties into his second auto ability that says when another Kagero rides this unit, you choose one of your Vanguards and that unit gets power plus 5,000, critical plus 1 until end of turn. So this is sort of like a mini pseudo break ride. When you ride any Kagero unit on top of him, it does basically get a free critical trigger for the turn, gaining extra 5,000 power and that extra crit. So definitely makes that turn 3 more impactful, gives you crit pressure on your Vanguard attack, and of course both the grade 3s in this deck do have potential restanding abilities. So if you can manage to pull off that restand while you have that extra crit stacked on there, you can possibly get 2 multi-critical attacks in one turn. So, pretty cool ability if you can get it off. This card overall is a little bit of a risk since you are definitely hindering your turn 2 in order to make your turn 3 that much stronger. So, this card isn't necessary by any means. I'm just kind of running it for the fun of it. If you don't want to deal with this card and don't want to run this, you don't have to. You can just replace this with 2 more copies of Nehalem, since all of this card's abilities only work on Vanguard Circle. So if you call this the rear guard, it is just a vanilla 10k like Nehalem would be anyway. So if you don't want to play this, you can just go that route. But I have been running it as the 2 of, and occasionally when I do get it off, it can be pretty fun. So yeah, it's pretty much player preference, whether you want to deal with that or not. So then lastly for the grade 2s, we have 4 copies of Bellicosity Dragon. So he has his auto ability that's active on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle. That says when this unit's attack hits a Vanguard, if you have a Kagero Vanguard, you choose a card from your damage zone and turn it face up. So this is the counter charge engine for the deck. This ability does have to hit a Vanguard in order to go off. So it's a good pressure unit, but obviously puts some control in your opponent's hands, since if they block the attack, then you obviously can't use this skill. And it does specifically have to hit a Vanguard, so that means once your opponent's at 5 damage, he's pretty much vanilla, since the attack's not going to hit at that point, and if it does, then you've won anyway, and the ability is moot. So, can be a useful card. This deck can be extremely counterblast heavy or extremely counterblast light, depending on what attacks hits and when, basically. So, kind of depends on the situation how useful this card is, but overall it is just a good pressure unit and a helpful rearguard for the deck. So that is all of the grade 2s. Moving on to the grade 3s. First off, we have 4 copies of Dragonic Overlord. So he has his continuous ability that's active on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle that says if you do not have another Kagero, Vanguard, or Rearguard, this unit gets power minus 2,000. So I stress the word another there because there is a typo on the card data side. It's accurate on the image of the card, but on the card data side it says if you do not have a Kagero, Vanguard, or Rearguard, it's not supposed to be a, it's supposed to be another. So if you do not have another Kagero unit, he does become a 9k base. So if you call him the Rearguard, every card in the deck is Kagero, so you'll at least have your Vanguard, so you'll be guaranteed to not have to deal with this if he's on Rearguard Circle. If he is on Vanguard Circle, you do got to make sure you have at least one other Rearguard out, or he will lose that power, and that's during both players' turns. So do keep that in mind. But then he also has his Activate ability that is again active on Vanguard and Rearguard Circle. that has a cost of Counterblast 3. But it says until end of turn, this unit gets power plus 5,000. And it gets a new auto ability that says when this unit's attack hits an opponent's rear guard, you stay in this unit. And then this unit also loses Twin Drive. So, honestly, to be such an iconic card, this ability isn't the best in the world. The main problem with it is that he loses Twin Drive immediately during your main phase before his first attack. So, he gains the ability to restand, but he has to hit a rear guard. So, ideally, what would happen here is your opponent has 2 rear guards in their front row. You use this ability, he gains 5k, loses Twin Drive, and gains the restand ability. You attack into one of their rear guards, you get 1 drive check, the attack hits, you restand him, attack into their other rear guard, again you get 1 drive check. The attack hits again, you restand him a second time, then you attack into their Vanguard, and you get a 3rd drive check. So if you can pull that off, that'll take out 2 of their rear guards and give you 1 more trigger chance than you would normally get, and a +1 to your hand. So if you can pull that off, it's pretty good. The problem is, 99% of the time, you're not going to pull that off because your opponent is going to block his first attack, and at that point you've basically spent 3 counterblast to minus yourself 1, because you only get 1 drive check instead of the normal 2 that you would get. So if his attack can hit at least once, it kind of works out okay, because you still get the Twin Drive that you would normally get, and you get to pick off one of your opponent's rear guards. So with at least 1 hit, it's decent. With 2 hits, it's pretty good, but most of the time it's going to be no hits. So using this on Vanguard Circle isn't really the best idea in the world, honestly. It can force your opponent to use up a lot of guard early, maybe. And again, if you ride this over top of striking, he'll gain 5k and a crit from that ability, which will stack with the 5k from this skill. So that'll put him at 21,002 crit plus boost. So he'll be hitting for some pretty big numbers in that situation. So, especially if you can get bar behind him. So occasionally it can be useful, but most of the time not. Honestly, if you're going to use this skill, it's probably better to use it on Rearguard Circle. In which case, losing the Twin Drive would be irrelevant anyway, since he's not going to be performing drive checks on Rearguard Circle. Now, all you'll get out of it then is the extra 5k, and again, the potential to restand if it does hit a rearguard. So, not as strong since you're not getting the potential extra drive check, but it can power up one of your rearguard attacks and again pressure your opponent. Which, again, I have to point out something about the AI if you're playing against the CPU in this game. The AI absolutely will block any Overlord attack from this form or from the end, even if they have to like drop their entire hand to do so. I don't know what's the deal with that. Like any other decks I play that have on-hit skills go off occasionally, even on-hit restand skills like with Stern Block Ogre, they'll occasionally let those attacks through. But the AI will 100% block Overlord's attacks every time if they are able to. Even if they have to drop their entire hand to do so and then just die to rearguard attacks, which I have had happen several times. So if you're playing against an actual human, you might get more mileage out of this ability. If you're playing against the CPU, you got to be very picky about when you use this skill in order to try to get anything out of it. So yeah, not the greatest skill in the world, doesn't get used that much, but occasionally can be useful. If nothing else, he is an 11k base, which is nice on your Vanguard Circle. He'll be an 11k beater on your Rearguard Circle as well, even without his skill. And of course, you do want to try to ride into this card first, just to set up your cross ride later. So still a vital card for the deck. So then lastly, we have our other grade 3, which is 4 copies of Dragonic Overlord the End. So this is the cross ride for Dragonic Overlord, and he has a continuous ability that is active on Vanguard and Rearguard Circle. That says if you have a non-Kagero Vanguard or Rearguard, this unit gets power minus 2,000. So you never had to worry about this ability. Every card in the deck is a Kagero, so this condition will never be met. So this ability is totally irrelevant. So then he also has his second continuous ability that's active on Vanguard Circle. that says if you have a card named Dragonic Overlord in your soul, this unit gets power plus 2,000. So this is the cross-ride ability, giving him the extra 2k. If you've got OG Overlord in your soul, bring him up to a 13k base on both players' turns, since this ability is active at all times. So there's no way to shove Dragonic Overlord into the soul, so you do have to just ride into it. So ideally you would ride into OG Overlord first, and then ride this card on top of him to get the cross-ride off and get that 13k base. So again, that's why I say it was important to have the OG Overlord in order to get that extra power gain. If it gets that 13k base, obviously it's more defense, and if you can get bar behind him, that makes a row of 21k as well. So that's a magic number against 11k Vanguards. So very important skill. And then lastly, he has his auto ability when he's on Vanguard Circle that has a cost of Counterblast 2, and choosing a card named Dragonic Overlord the End from your hand and discarding it. And it says when this unit's attack hits, you may pay the cost, and if you do, stand this unit. So this is a much more powerful restanding skill than OG Overlord is. For one thing, it can hit anything. It doesn't have to exclusively hit a rearguard. So you can attack into their Vanguard, you can attack into their rearguard, whatever you want to go into, and you will have that on hit pressure. Also, the other good thing about it is he doesn't lose Twin Drive, or any sort of drives at all. So if you do get this ability off and you do get to restand him, you will have Twin Drive on his second attack as well. So you can potentially get up to 4 trigger checks in one turn, as well as a +1 overall, since you gain an extra Twin Drive, but you have to discard 1 for the cost. So it's still a +1 overall for you. Now, the cost of this ability is what was referred to back in the day as a Persona Blast, since you had to Counterblast 2, and then you have to discard a copy of himself from your hand. So a little bit piece reliant there, since you do have to have that second copy in your hand in order to be able to pay the cost. But with the timing of this ability being after he hits, that means even if you don't have one in your hand when you attack with him, there is always the chance you could drive check into one. So again, very nice ability. It can very much mess with your opponent's head if you are playing against a human, since they have to, guess if you have another copy in your hand or if you're going to drive check into one and, guard accordingly. So very big pressure on this attack. Again, if you're playing against the CPU, they are going to guard it 100% of the time if they are able to do so. Even if they have to go to extreme lengths to do so, and then have nothing left to guard any of your other attacks. So, yeah. It's kind of hard to get this skill off playing against the CPU, but forcing them to use up their hand very quickly with this attack can still be very beneficial to you. So, overall, just a very, very cool card, and a very nice boss unit for the deck. So, that is the deck, so we will go ahead and have our one fight with it. Which, for this fight, I'm actually going to do challenge mode here and try not only to win, but I'm going to try to actually get the end skill to go off, if we can. Mostly because I want the cut in for my thumbnail. But we're going to try, and we're going to face Row in order to do so. And we will be going first. Alright, so we'll ride Gojo, which will trigger Conroe's Forerunner ability to let us call him to Rearguard Circle. And I could use Gojo to hand filter here, but I've actually got a pretty decent hand, so I think I'm just going to end my turn. And I'll let that one through. He gets a draw trigger right off the bat. But we get a draw trigger as well. But unfortunately, the only thing we can guard with in our hand is a perfect guard, since we can't call guardians of higher grade than our Vanguard in vintage format. So, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to let that one through too. But we get a heal trigger, which we do get. So that nullified that damage. Alright, so go ahead and ride striking, why not? So he does have restraint, so we won't be able to attack with our Vanguard this turn. But we can go ahead and use Conroe's activate ability. So we'll retire him and counterblast one. Search out any grade 1 or lower, so we'll go ahead and grab Bar, since we already have a perfect guard in our hand. So then we'll call Nehalem over here, and we'll call Bellicosity over here. And I think that's all for now, so we can go ahead and attack with our rear guards at least. So we'll have Bellicosity attack his Vanguard. And he let it through. So that means Bellicosity's skill will go off since his attack hit. And we'll get the counter charge one. So then we'll attack with Nehalem. And I'm actually going to target his rear guard here because that's a good booster I want to get rid of. And he had to ride into Maka, so he did not get Blaster Dark. And he attacks unboosted, so that will trigger Striking's ability to gain an extra 5k. Which means this attack will not go through, even with a trigger, so we're going to let that through. And he does get a heal, which he does get, but the attack will not hit, so he gives the power to Masquerade. And again, he attacks unboosted, because the AI doesn't recognize the skill. So Striking's ability triggers, and the attack does not hit. And Masquerade does not get his boost since his Vanguard doesn't have Blaster in his name. So see, if the AI recognized that skill, he could have attacked into a rear guard there, and he didn't. So, yeah. So anyway, now we can ride into Dragonic Overlord. Which will trigger Striking's other ability to give an extra 5k and a crit. And we only have one face-up damage, so we definitely can't use his skill. But we can go ahead and call Bar to our back listener. And I think that's all for now. So we will attack with the Vanguard first. And he does get a crit trigger. So that means our rear guards won't be able to hit his Vanguard, but we can attack into Masquerade. That's that one through. So Nehalem can't hit anything, so we're going to have to just end our turn there. And he did ride into Phantom Blaster Dragon, but it's only 10k since Blaster Dark isn't in the soul. And he couldn't fill up his board at all, so this is the only attack he's getting this turn. So I'll go ahead and let that one through. He gets a draw trigger. And a crit trigger on top of that. So that's going to push us to 3. And we get a crit that is wasted, unfortunately. Alright, so unfortunately we don't get our cross ride right now, at least. So we're going to end the phase without riding. And then we'll call another bar behind Bellicosity. And we'll call Airmo behind Nehalem. And there's no point in activating Overlord's ability since he doesn't have any rear guards right now. So we're going to just attack. And I'm actually going to attack with Nehalem first. And he guards. So then we'll attack with Dragonic Overlord. And there's the end. So we can get our cross ride next turn. So now I'll attack with Bellicosity, boosted by Bar. And he guards. And he got his cross ride as well. And he calls Maka and uses her skill to search out Corone, which makes a roll of 16. So we'll guard that with that crit. That'd be 2 to pass. And he got no triggers. And we'll guard again with this other crit. Alright, so now we can't cross ride into Dragonic Overlord the End, bringing us to 13k as well. So with that, I think we're good to go, so we'll just go ahead and attack with the Vanguard first, and we'll swing at his Vanguard, why not? Because he's going to block it anyway. That's definitely not going through. Which we don't have our Persona copy in our hand to pay the cost anyway. Even if it did hit. So now we'll attack with Nehalem. And he guards. So we'll attack with Bellicosity. And he guards again. And now we just need 5 to block that, so we will guard with this draw. And I think I'm actually going to let that one through. And he gets a crit trigger, of course. So it's going to put us to 5. He got a perfect guard as well. But we get a heal trigger, which we do get. So we will heal 1. And let's see, I'm going to give that power to the Vanguard. And he's going to attack Nehalem, which we have another one in our hand, so we'll just let that one through. Alright, so in the phase without riding. And instead, we'll call another Nehalem to replace the one we just lost. And I think we're good. So we will attack with our Vanguard once again. And I'm going to target Maka, actually, just to force a little more guard out of him. Since I know he's going to block this. And yeah, he used up that perfect guard. Little does he know, we don't have our persona copy anyway. And we still don't. Alright, so now we'll attack with... we'll go ahead and attack with Bellicosity. And he guards. So now we'll attack with Nehalem. Unless that went through. So since that attack hit, that'll trigger Airmo's ability. So we can't hand filter, so we'll discard... I'll drop one of these OG Overlords. And we get the 10k shield into our hand at least. Which is good, because that's the only one we have. Alright, so we got a Burning Horn in our hands. We'll actually intercept with Nehalem here. And we'll guard of that crit. That'll be 2 to pass. And he's attacking into Bellicosity, but again, we have another in our hand, so we'll just let that through. And we drew our heal. Alright, so again, in phase without riding. And we'll call our Bellicosity right back. And we'll call Burning Horn over here, which will make a column of 18k. So with that, we can attack once again with a Vanguard first. And again, I'm going to target Maka just to force more guard out of his hand. And yeah, he used up 3 cards there to ensure a no-hit. And we check 2 perfect cards. And still no persona copy. So we'll attack with Burning Horn. Burning Horn skill will give him an extra 3k, since our Vanguard has Overlord in its name. Let that one through. And he gets a crit trigger. But that will let us use Airmo's ability once again, so we will hand filter. And we'll drop that other Overlord. And draw Bellicosity again. So we'll attack with Bellicosity, who cannot hit the Vanguard, so I guess we'll just take out... And we'll take out Blaster Dark. And we just need 5, so we'll guard that with that Airmo. Now he does have 3 face-up damage, so yep, he's got the Persona copy, so he's going to use Phantom Blaster Overlord skill to gain 10k and a crit. So we have to block this, because that's 2 crit and I'm at 4 damage, so we're going to perfect guard that one. And we'll discard Gojo. And it gets another crit trigger. So means we're going to have to block that attack too. And another crit on top of that. Come on. And Masquerade's going to gain another 3k. So it's going to be a whopping 30,003 crit. I'm going to check real fast. He's got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. He's used up 12 of his triggers so far. And that's not counting the 2 in his hand, so it's actually 14. So he's only got 2 triggers left in his deck. Alright, so we're going to have to perfect guard this. So we'll drop... Yeah, we'll drop Bellicosity, I guess. And we're still missing that other copy of the End. He's only got 3 cards in his hand. Okay. So we'll just go ahead and attack then. With the Vanguard first. And again, I'm going to aim at Maka. And he drops his whole hand. We get a crit trigger. So that's not enough. So we'll give it to Burning Horn. And we get a draw trigger. And still no Persona copy. So we'll give that to Bellicosity. Now this is the scenario I mentioned before about them dropping their whole hand and leaving themselves wide open to rearguard attacks. So we absolutely could finish him right now. But I'm on challenge mode, and I'm trying to get that Vanguard skill off. So I'm actually not going to attack his Vanguard here, just for that. So we're going to attack into Masquerade. And Burning Horn gains another 3 key. which will trigger Airmo's ability again. We'll keep hand filtering until we find it, folks. So we'll drop that draw. And there he is! We finally found our persona. A little bit late there. So we'll have Bellicasti attack Maka as well. And he drew into another copy of Masquerade, so he does have one rear guard out, which is actually good. So we're going to guard that with this crit. That's 2 to pass. He's only got 2 left in the deck. And he checks 2 grade 3s, so he has no shield in his hand at all. And I don't need to block that at all, but I'm going to anyway. So we'll guard with that heal. Alright, well I know for a fact he absolutely can't guard anything because he has 0 shield in his hand and only 1 intercept. So we're gonna declare final turn. Alright. So we've got our persona copy ready to go. We've got our field set up. So we are just going to attack. And we're going to have the End attack into Masquerade. And he has no choice but to let it through. And we get a crit trigger. So we're going to stack that on the Vanguard, since we will be able to restand him finally. So his attack hit, so we will use the skill of the End. So we counter blast 2. And we persona blast. And he restands. So we can attack again for 18k, 2 crit, plus twin drive. And we get another crit on top of that, as if he wasn't dead enough already, because he's used up all of his heals. But we're just going to rub it in, so we're going to put the crit onto the End, and we're going to give the power to Bellicasti. So he is dead to several degrees. And another crit on top, wow. So crit to the Vanguard, power to Burning Horn. Right in with a 4 crit attack. So he's extra crispy, dude. So there you go. We definitely got him with that one. So yeah, that was my Kagero Overlord deck. I do like this deck. It is actually one of the stronger decks available in this meta of the vintage format. So, very fun deck to play, especially when you can get that restanding skill off, even if it does take a little bit of doing sometimes in order to be able to do so. But anyway, I will be back soon with more deck profiles. So next up, I think I'm going to do another vintage deck, actually, with my Oracle Think Tank Tsukuyomi deck. So until then, I guess that's all for this video. So lots of luck to you and yours.